Hey, party people. Welcome to today's live. Is anyone here? Hello, hello. Sound check, sound check. One, two, three. Also, exciting news for me anyway is this channel, Operation Reentry, has officially uh, been monetized. It is now eligible for monetization. And, I think that ads have been playing on these videos the whole time. It's just I have not been receiving any money from them. And hello, Elazar. And but you have to get like a certain number of subscribers and you have to get a certain number of watch hours in order to monetize your channel. So I have hit my 3,000. It's like 1,000 subscribers and 3,000 watch hours on recorded videos. So I hit that. So woohoo me. Yay. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Olga. Hello, Celine. Hello, the underground Kambalach. Okay. Y'all and your usernames. Okay. So I have a request. I had a subscriber request on today's live. And why is my computer not cooperating with me? Because it always likes to do that when I'm busy. Okay. I want to read the request. There's like so many comments on my random car post. Oh, hold on, you guys. I'm sorry. Hi, Rachel. Hi, Natasha. So the question is, hi, in your next live, can you talk about your experience slash knowledge of designing with large prints, parentheses, motifs that are meant to be on a specific part of the body when sizes may vary? So we're going to be talking about print design today, and specifically, we're going to be talking about engineered prints or placed prints. Okay, there, people use the terms interchangeably. I I am going to be referencing my book today because I have a lot of really good visual examples in my book, and I have a whole chapter on print development and surface design. And I have a lot of design exercises in here to help you take your visual inspiration and use them as starting off points for print design. But today we are going to be concentrating on this question specifically about placed prints or engineered prints. And what that means is when you see, like, let's say you see a pattern of roses all over a dress, okay? That means that it could be the whole fabric has a bunch of roses on it, or the pattern and the garment and the way it's cut is designed so that there are only roses right here, okay? And it's not that there's like a seam there. It's just the rest of the dress is plain, but the print of roses is just up here, and that's how the designer designed it along with the print designer. That's an engineered print, that's a placed print, okay? And when it comes to those kinds of prints, well, rewind, when it comes to any kind of print, the number one thing you have to keep in mind, okay, this is the tie in between design and construction, is your fabric grain line and the direction of your print, okay? So when we are cutting clothes, okay, most clothes, okay, the grain line is going up and down center front, up and down center back, along the length of your sleeve. Okay, that's most clothes, along the length of your pant leg, along center front, center back of your skirts. Okay, of course, there's bias cuts. Okay, that's when it's an exact 45-degree angle. And some trims, okay, can be cut on the cross, collars, cuffs, yokes are cut on the cross. Okay. Um, Yokes of pants are also cut on the cross. Pockets, any kind of pocket flaps, pocket details, you can kind of cut those on any grain because it doesn't hang. You don't have to worry about the drape. You don't really have to worry about a lot of garment strength, because you confuse it, whatever. So those kinds of details you can play with the cross, but like the vast, vast, vast majority of garments, the grain is going up and down. And so you have to think about that when you're designing your pattern. Okay, so the first thing you have to think about is the direction of your pattern. And I have this page here in my book. Okay, so you can have a one direction pattern. You see how all the hearts are facing in one direction? And then you can have a two direction pattern where the hearts are going up and the hearts are going down. So when you're laying out a pattern, okay, here's a new book I picked up, okay? You can have the pattern go this way, the pattern piece be cut this way on the fabric, or it can be cut this way on the fabric because the hearts are going this way and the hearts are going that way. And it doesn't matter if it's cut this way or if it's cut that way. But if all the hearts are going in one direction, okay, and let's say you need the hearts to be all right side up the whole time, you need to make sure every pattern piece is going in the same direction, okay? And that can make for a more difficult marker. It can make for more expensive production because you have to be really careful on making a marker. You're going to end up wasting more fabric because you can't, there are all these rules to follow in the marker making. And so people will make a two direction pattern. So you can go like this and you can go like that. And, when you see a lot of like these cheap pajama pants, just these whatever pajama pants, especially like kids' pajama pants, you'll see that the pattern is going every which way, and the cartoon characters, some of them are upside down, some of them are sideways. That's to help with the cutting. That's to help that you can make the tightest marker possible because you're not, you're following the grain, but you don't really care what direction it's cut in. The last one is four direction or all direction, where I have hearts going up and down, left and right. And so it doesn't matter. They're going all over the place. And it looks like a more all over pattern, okay? And you see this a lot in a lot of prints, more inexpensive prints. It is the cheapest way to do prints. That doesn't necessarily mean the print is bad. It gives a more overall flow. You're not paying attention to the direction, okay? Direction in cutting is one of those things you have to think about when you're also doing any sort of pile fabric, okay? So pile fabrics include fur and faux fur and velvet and anything in the velvet family like velour. And so velvet, we know, velveteen is like cheap thin velvet, and then velour is knit velvet, okay? And so suede also falls into that category where there's a direction that the hairs are going, okay? Velvet is made like carpet, okay? Even if you've never seen velvet in your life, you've probably seen carpet, where basically you have cross and lengthwise grains being woven, and then you have a third hair that's like sticking up, right? And so it's like carpet. Velvet is like carpet. And so there's a direction. You ever vacuum carpet and you see when you vacuum this way, it looks a certain way. And then when you vacuum it back, it looks a different way. Okay. That's because it's a pile fabric. It has a direction. And so when you cut those fabrics, you have to make sure that they're all going in the same direction. Right. So that's the number one thing about print design. Okay. Penguin Boy says, "That's so true. My childhood bedding had Disney characters facing up, down, left, right, any which way." Yes, that's exactly it. Okay. And then I do have a page on exploring pattern repeats, but that's not really relevant to today's conversation. So we're going to skip past that. Okay. And then I do have a section on placement prints, placed prints, engineered prints in my book. So if you see my example, this is a black strapless dress with a giant rose print that is strategically placed on the hip and thigh on one side. Okay. And so, and it's not an embellishment, it's not an applique, it's just the print. And so, what you would do in that case is you would have a lot of black fabric and you would print these huge gold roses spaced out intermittently. And the spacing would depend on how much fabric you need to cut the rest of the dress. So you have to make the pattern for the dress, figure out the marker for it, how much fabric you're going to need. Like, are you going to want the rose to connect in the back? Okay. Can you with the curved side seam? Are you going to want an all black back? How much seaming is going on in the back? Like, you have to leave enough. If you're going to, you have to leave enough black fabric in the rest of it to cut the rest of the dress. In an emergency situation, I guess you could pick up another roll of just plain black fabric and cut the back with that. But then we're talking about fabric quality, dye lots. Like, you want to cut from the same roll of fabric. So all the black parts look consistent and all the gold parts look consistent. You know what I mean? And so you have to be strategic in how you are going to space out the gold roses apart from each other. Okay. And oh, thanks, Rachel. Rachel says, by the way, to anyone who's viewing, I bought Zoe's book a while back and I'd highly recommend it. It's full of really practical info and I'm so glad I bought it. Thanks. So you have to think about all those things. And just as this person, Gabrielle, is saying, you also have to think about the different sizes. Okay. You cannot just think about the size 6 that you're going to cut and how much room you need of all black fabric for the size 6. You're going to have to, in this particular case, gauge for the largest size of your size run to make sure you always have enough room to make size 12s. Okay. Especially if you don't have a lot of seams. Okay. And that if you don't have a lot of seams, then you have to cut very few, very big pieces of black fabric. If you're doing like a bunch of like black corsets with like really small pattern pieces, because there's like a lot of seams running up and down, then yeah, you can kind of cut around and manipulate the marker and all that stuff. But a simple dress like this, not so much. Okay. And then you also have to think about the direction the rose is going. If you only want just one rose per dress, then you have to be strategic. So this one is in this shape going up and down, which means if your fabric runs this way, then the rose has to be situated like kind of in the middle. So you have plenty of black fabric on the bottom, but more black fabric on the top. Okay, because that's the way it's engineered on the dress. And then plenty of black space to cut the rest of the fabric. Okay, so this is like the intersection of design and construction. And this is one of the many reasons why when I say that understanding construction of a garment will help you be a better designer, this is the kind of thing you're talking about. And yeah, like you can get help with someone who's really good at markers, who's really good at print design and doing repeats and stuff like that. But the point is that if you don't know how any of this stuff works and you're trying to design something, like all this information will come from left field if you're unaware that these are the things that have to happen. Okay. Now, if you have like a giant gold rose like that, another thing you have to consider is how Penguin Boy says, what is marker? Markers in pattern making are basically you have a piece of paper and you have to figure out how your pattern pieces are going to lay out and get cut so that you have the correct grain lines for everything. Everything fits together. You're wasting the least amount of fabric. Okay. And unless it's for a samples, you're just doing one off so nobody cares. But if you're doing running production, your cutter is not going to sit there and play a jigsaw puzzle with your pattern pieces like right on the factory floor. That is a huge waste of time. So a marker maker would in advance take all your pattern pieces, and I'm talking for all your small, medium, large, all your sizes, and they would also do the math on how many units per size you want to make compared to how many layers of fabric you're going to drop down. So let's say you want to make 10 smalls and 20 mediums. Okay. And then you have 10 layers of fabric. Okay. That's the minimum because you're going to make the smallest number of smalls, right? One option is to cut twice as many mediums because you want 20 mediums with 10 layers of fabric. And then you're going to draw out on your marker, which is going to be the same width as your fabric. You know, you're going to draw. What is wrong with this pen? Why do pens never work during demo? I feel like I'm back to my university days when I would have these dry erase markers and they wouldn't work. And it would just make me crazy. I don't even know if you can see that. Can you see that? Where I drew the top and the sleeve and they're butting into each other to save space, to like just pack it in as much as possible. Okay. And so you draw this on a huge sheet of paper and you print out the huge sheet of paper and then you lay it on top of your fabric, secure everything, and then the cutter takes a vertical knife and cuts around all these pattern pieces. And this is your marker. Okay. Celine says also 2 bolts of fabric would have a slight difference on shade. Yes, I said that already. Anyway, so there's that. So you got to make the marker and you have to think about those things. Now, there are a couple of categories within border prints or engineer prints. We have border prints and panel prints. Now, border prints, okay, as I've already said, okay, this is the length of your fabric. That's the selvage. That's parallel to grain. You can have a design that just goes along the bottom, the whole length of the fabric, okay? You can also have one where it's on the bottom and the top, okay? So we're just going. This is an example of a border print where I have roses on the top and I have roses on the bottom. They're identical prints. You can have ones that are not identical. Like you can have ones where there's like daisies on the top and roses on the bottom, whatever, however you want to design it. But keep in mind that you have to also follow the grain. So let's say you have a dress where some panels are going to be cut out of rows all over fabric and some panels are going to be cut in the green, just plain green, but you want to make sure that the fabric quality is the same. This could be a good option for you where you develop a marker so that all the pattern pieces like a pocket or whatever are being drawn out of the border. Okay, so all these pieces are going to be roses. And then the middle section, like maybe the skirt part, is going to just be all green. Okay, so that's something that you can also develop. You can also do the opposite. Like let's say you just want like a row of roses that go down the center front of your dress and you want the rest of it to be green. Okay, let's pretend. We're just making up wild designs today. You can have, too much hair, a panel print, okay, where the roses are going up and down along the cross, okay? Oh, you know what? That didn't That's something you would do with a border print. Okay. But let's say, let me rewind. Okay. Hello, Jillian. Hello, Ellen. Let's say you want a skirt and you just want roses all over the bottom, right? Okay. I think we've seen a lot of these styles before where you just have like an A-line skirt and then you have like roses all along the bottom. Okay. But your grain is going up and down, right? So you can't use a border print. The roses are going in the wrong direction. Hello, Agatar. And so you want a panel print. Okay. And so this is panel print. This is the length grain. Okay. This is your selvage over here. And so you can cut out a skirt in this space. And you would have to space out the green, okay, for how long you want the green part of your skirt. Okay. So you would have to lay down a digital copy of your pattern. Like, how much do I want to be roses? How much do I want it to be solid green? And make sure there's enough space in between to be all solid green and enough space to be roses. Or maybe you want the roses on the top and the bottom of the skirt, and so you want this like narrow green, okay? So like it really is where design and construction meet, where you have to kind of like have the silhouette of the design and the print kind of working at the same time and that's why people call them engineered prints, because it does require some engineering to make sure that you have enough fabric. And again, this is all like, you always have to think about all your sizes. So it's not so much that you have to have a special consideration for different sizes. It's that you should be thinking about all your sizes all the time when you're doing this kind of work. Okay. Jillian says, yeah, this can get expensive fast. Yeah, there's plenty of labor up front to do the engineering, but once you've got it figured out, like the actual, like the print design shouldn't cost more. Like if you have a design that you like, or the actual printing of it should not cost more, than comparing it to like an all over rose print with the same number of colors, same method, same base fabric, those kinds of things. It's really just like the work up front where you are figuring out the marker and you're figuring out the placement. The waste in fabric that happens by having to strategically place your patterns on the fabric, that's the big waste in money. That's the big waste in fabric. And that's the big cost, because you are going to end up wasting a lot of fabric. Okay. So you have to buy a lot more fabric than you normally would. And so your normal yields, so when you're doing a pattern, you always have to like mark the yield on your pattern card, right? So that you can add it to your costing later. Yield is when you're like, okay, for this pattern, I'm going to need 2.5 yards of the self fabric. I'm going to need 2.5 yards of lining fabric. I'm going to need 1/4 yard of fusible. I need 3 buttons. Okay. Like those are your yields, and that goes straight into your cost. And your pattern maker fills that out on the pattern card, and that should go straight into your costing, so that when you're costing out your garment, you have, 2.5, 1/4, blah, 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 all these things. Okay. So when you are making things with engineered prints, and you have to figure out how much more fabric you're going to use, because you're going to have all these gaps. Okay. And so if you have a fabric like this and you have all these wasted spaces, you have to try to be strategic in like, how do you use all the little corners of the fabric? Maybe waistbands, okay? Maybe pockets, pocket flaps, pocket facings, welt pockets, all those little tiny things. you do have to like something like that. You do want to design like, okay, I want my pocket flaps to be all green because I don't want it to be contrast. Can I make the pocket facing in rose fabric if that's going to be more strategic because people aren't really going to see it? Maybe it's like a nice little surprise on the inside. Maybe the inside of my waistband, okay, maybe you can do like a waistband with a top edge seam instead of a folded waistband that takes up more fabric. Okay. Maybe you have a seam along the top edge of your waistband, like jeans waistbands, so that the inside waistband can be cut from whatever area of the fabric. It won't matter because nobody will see it from the outside. So you can also think about it in terms of how strategic can you get in using whatever leftover bits of the fabric. So working with a good marker maker and a pattern maker, like having all these people in place. So if you are a print forward company who likes to play with engineered prints, like you really have to understand the construction of your garments or have someone on your team who really does, to kind of play around with how you can place everything. And you're really going to have to, and it's also a matter of notching. Okay, so the next thing we have to talk about is notching your pattern so that when you're marking out your pattern and your marker and everything, it makes sense to where you place things. Okay, so Jillian says those make some of the most beautiful designs, so it's worth it to make something unique. Oh, absolutely. I'm not trying, like whenever I kind of run down a process and it sounds like it's a lot of work, I'm never trying to discourage anyone. I'm always trying to prepare you with all the information I have so that you go in with clear eyes. Okay, it's always about that. It's never about, you guys, it's so much work. Don't even bother, okay? Like you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do it. No, it's like, here's a checklist so that you go in informed, knowing that these are the things that you have to think about to design such a thing. Okay, and so, when someone quotes you a lot of money for something, then you'll know that it's for real. And if something feels a little bit too cheap, you're like, why is it so cheap? And next week, my live stream is going to be all about following the money. Okay. You can have something like this where it's an all over print and it does have a repeat. It repeats. You can see the same pink head here and here and here and here. It's like a simple like repeat, but you can also take that print and decide you want that pink head in a strategic spot on every single dress, and you have to mark for that with your notches. Okay, so the easiest example of this is stripe matching. Stripe matching is oddly controversial. Like I don't know why stripe matching is so controversial, but I've had some random conversations on threads about it. Okay, so first of all, stripe matching is not necessarily an indicator of quality. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, just because the stripes don't match, there are a lot of reasons stripes don't match. One of them could be it's a cheap garment and they don't care and they just slapped it together. Another reason might be it's a curved seam and the front and back curves do not match. And so there's no way to match up the stripes. This is particularly true in plaids. So the difference between a tartan plaid and a regular plaid is tartan plaids go exactly the same way this way as they do that way. Okay, go look at the OG Scottish tartans and you will see that every single one, the same design, the same assortment of stripes, go this way as they do that way. Okay, that's how they are made. Okay, and so that is also part of our vernacular now. Any plaid that has identical vertical and horizontal striping configurations are tartan plaids. So those are easier to stripe match, especially on crisscrossing areas like the yoke. I mentioned before the yoke is on the cross, and like the shirt back would be the length. And you could match those if it's a tartan plaid, but if it's not, then it's impossible because the stripe configuration is going to be different in the two different directions. Okay. That one looks really cool. This print in the book, yeah, this is mine. All this is mine. And so there's that. And then there's some people who do it for sustainability reasons, like traditionally in Japan. Okay. Plaid is also native to Japan. Like they have developed their own plaids over hundreds of years. And I don't know who came up with it, whatever. I'm not getting into that. But plaid kimonos, like super old plaid kimonos, they're a thing. You know, the Japanese have used plaid for a very long time. And they do not match their stripes because it's a waste of fabric. And they don't waste fabric. It's so expensive and time consuming to make fabric that they make it and they use every single bit possible. If you've ever made a kimono from scratch, like a true Japanese traditional kimono, which I have, the fabric wastage is so minimal. Okay. Like even the little triangular pieces in the front, they're cut from one rectangle. It's like one rectangle cut diagonally to create the two triangles in the front. And the only true wastage is like the little quarter that they snip right at the neck so that it fits better around the neck. Even the collar is like one long rectangle. Like everything is a series of rectangles. And there's so little wastage in kimono that if you're going to try to match up center back seams, sleeve to the body, no, they don't do none of that. They don't do none of that. They are using every last thread of that fabric. And so they don't do that. And now more sustainable brands have picked up on that because matching stripes does take up more fabric. It does waste more fabric in mass production. And so some brands do that. I do think that if there's like a particular design focus, like somebody was critiquing this one dress where there was like a special design right at the waist and the way they had matched the stripes flowing into each other right at that spot looked really good. And I agree with that kind of thing because it is such a like a design focus right at the front waist at Princess. And like all the lines were kind of radiating from that spot. And so if you did them, the design would be awful. And so, yeah, in that kind of circumstance, that is a quality thing. That is a design thing. So you do have to judge what stripe matching means in a case by case. Okay. But if you do decide to match your stripes, like let's say you're doing a basic boxy man's shirt. And so they typically have, well, all shirts have front, center, back, or there's no seam at all. There's just like a box pleat, okay? And they have straight sleeves, straight side seams. So you want to match the side seams. You want to match the placket to the center front seam. Those are all perfectly straight seams where you can match the stripes and have it look like it's going all the way around. You're going to mark a stripe matching notch. And so you know how notches are used in sewing so that things are lining up. Like we'll have an armhole notch that matches with the sleeve cap notch, and that's where they're supposed to be together when they're sewn. So you'll have a specific that's meant for stripe matching. So like along the center, like the side seam, there'll be one notch where it's like, this is going to be the top of a navy blue stripe. And that's going to be the same for the front and for the back so that they can match up at the side seam. Okay, that sort of thing. So you'll use stripe matching notches. And so if you need something like that with an all over print, okay, let's say you want one of these big pink heads right on your boob, because that's how you do. Okay, let's say you want to have in your spec pack that you have a notch right at the top of the pink head. And you want it right at the top of your bust. Okay, I'm just making up scenarios here. So that when the marker is made, that's how it's going to be. It's like the pink head is going to sit right there. They're going to underlay the print design under the marker so that the pink head is right there, and so that every single pattern piece there's like a pink head. Okay. Now that gets expensive because every time you lay down a layer of fabric, with stripe matching, with pattern matching, like all those things, you have to make sure that the layers of fabric are laying identical. Okay. So with a solid color, you lay out 10 yards of purple and then another layer and then another layer. And maybe you're going to cut a bunch of pink ones. So you lay down layers of pink in the same fabric and then you cut all the purple and pink ones together, right? But with a stripe, if you want to cut a bunch of multiples, you have to make sure that all the stripes match up. All the layers, all the blues are in one section, all the greens, all the lines match up so that the notches match. I'm getting a headache just thinking about it. So all that to say that and I know a lot of people refuse to believe me, but this is, again, not about discouraging you to play with these things, but to understand that, like, so construction decisions impact a lot. Okay. And so, referencing this leather tank I have been making, it's taking a really long time because recording videos of myself making things always takes a million times longer than just making the thing. But I refuse to do a highlight reel. Okay. Like somebody had said on Threads, like, this is how I do it. I just clip this and I just and I'm like, I know, but there's like so many videos of the highlight reel of sewing all over social media. And yeah, they're entertaining. And if I wanted to grow my TikTok audience based on fun sewing videos and, just like an overhead shot of me sewing and like a one of me cutting with my big fancy scissors, clip, and then voila, here's my, that's not my voice on social media. My voice is to explain to you how things are done every step of the way. And if at the end of you watching my tank top series, you realize there are so many things to consider in the making of even one simple lined leather tank, I had no idea, then my work here is done. Okay, that's actually what I want to share with people, that the making of a thing is not as simple. Okay. Okay, I feel a rant coming on because I hate using the word triggered, but basically I was getting really aggravated at this creator. So there's this makeup creator, beauty content creator on TikTok. And normally I like their content. I don't follow them, but whenever I see them, I normally like their content because I love their look. Okay. And they do end up buying quite expensive cosmetics. Okay. They're not one of those, let's find a dupe for this and let's find a dupe for that. They do end up buying the high end makeup. So $30, $40 for a lipstick, $60 for a foundation. They don't bat an eye with this stuff. And nor should she. Whatever she wants to do, spend her money on, make her content around, good for her. You look amazing. You're a great makeup artist. Okay. But recently she made a TikTok where she said that she's like, this is not my normal content, but I'm looking for underwear. Okay. And so she was talking about how she wants to get plain cotton underwear. And she found the plain cotton underwear that she really wants. She's like, there's nothing wrong with this. Is exactly what I want. And then she says, tell me why it's $100 for 5 pairs of underwear. It's so little fabric. Like, how can it possibly be $100 for 5 pairs? And I don't write hate comments on the internet. I don't really write comments on the internet often, period. But if I did, I would write to this person and $50 on a lipstick that's like this big. Okay. It's so small. And there's only so much. It's just like this tiny little minuscule blob of lipstick. How do you expect us to pay $50 for one tube of lipstick? Which I never do because I know why that thing is $50. And I know that that lipstick is going to last me a lot of wears. I have fucking common sense. And so I do not ever make comments like that. And if I can't afford something, I keep my mouth shut and don't say a word. But I know why things cost the way they do, and because there's so many materials that go into it, and the cost. She wanted organic cotton. That was the thing. This underwear was organic cotton, 5 for $100, and she's like, "Why is it $100 for 5 of these?" And so this morning on Threads, being all irritated, I said, there are so many of you who think that the only thing that goes into the price of a thing is materials costs, and you are part of the problem. Okay, you think the materials are the only thing that goes into the cost of a thing? You don't think about the labor, you don't think about the engineering. Like, actually, small things are harder to make because like getting into those tight spaces and getting things to look nice and neat in these teeny tiny spaces and controlling your sewing machine to make a precise seam for like an inch. Like, if you have a long seam, it's so much easier. You just like making an A-line skirt with like no extra seams is 100 times easier than making a teeny tiny thong. Okay. And it's not about the material. Like, and of course, underwear materials are more expensive because they're finer fabrics. You want organic cotton. They're more delicate fabrics, but they also have to be strong enough to withhold like hundreds of washes the way we do with underwear. We wash underwear way more than your average skirt. We just do, because if you have any sense of basic hygiene, you're going to wash your underwear after you wear it one day. Whereas with a skirt, maybe you wear it for a couple hours and then you line dry it and then you wear it again some other day if you didn't sweat too much in it. You know what I mean? And so underwear fabric has to be made to withstand a lot of washes. And so that has to be engineered to fit right. It had to be designed right. You wanted really nice fabric. You wanted this. So all the labor that goes into designing an underwear and then making each, like, and then if you think about the cost per wear for something like plain underwear, don't talk to me about your $50 lipsticks when you're not going to give that same respect to a $20 pair of underwear that I would say you need a lot more than another lipstick. Okay, if we're going to get catty about it, which I wasn't until you decided to play ignorant online. I am so irritated. Like, sometimes knowing too much makes life less enjoyable for me, because sometimes I can't take that off. Okay, there's like this new trend on TikTok where people are buying fruit and juicing it themselves at home. Totally innocent, right? So innocent. They're juicing fruits and vegetables. Oh my God, Zoe, what could you possibly have to critique about people juicing fruit at home? It's not the juicing fruit at home. Okay, you want to juice fruit at home and you enjoy it. Fine, wonderful, magical. It's when people are like, I spent $10 on this bottle of juice and I spent $3 on the same fruit. Let's see how much juice I can get. And they're like, oh my God, it's the same amount of juice, except this bottle of juice was $10 and this fruit was $3. Yeah, the fruit was $3. And then how much labor did it take for you to wash your fruit, cut up your fruit in such a way that it will fit in your juicer and then juice the thing and put it in a bottle. How much did that bottle cost you? How much did your measuring cup cost you? And then how much labor was it to wash all the individual juicing parts when you were done? And then what did you do with the leftover fruit bits after you were done? You had to throw it away somehow, and you have to pay someone to take your trash away. Like, I literally cannot stand it. It's especially hilarious to me when the price difference isn't that much. When it's like, this is $8 worth of fruit and $10 worth of juice. I'm like, if you bought the $10 juice, you won. Okay? You won. You cannot tell me, like, the price of things is not just materials. It's not. It's the labor that goes into making the things. It's the machinery that they bought, that they invested in these processes to make the thing. It's about the washing and upkeep of the machine, about paying people to take away the recycling and the trash after the thing. And it's like, it's the labor. And then you tell me, oh, I'm not making enough money. My salary is shit. And it's like, well, you know what? I'm actually very sorry people cannot make a livable income. But at the same time, it's like, you all devalue the labor. You make these cute little TikToks about juicing your fruit, and it's like, you all devalue labor. You've learned it from, we've had trickle down economics. We've trickled down the opinion from billionaires that labor means nothing. And you get shit wages. You also think that buying $8 worth of fruit and juicing it yourself, you're saving money than you are to just buy the $10. Make it make sense. Don't talk to me about your $20 underwear when you're trying to pitch to me $60 lipstick. Do not. Absolutely do not. $60 luxury product versus, I would say that underwear is a necessity. You know, maybe not lingerie, fancy lingerie, but, you know, cotton underwear is a necessity, is a hygiene necessity in life. Don't talk to me about your fancy lipsticks if you can't pay what you should be paying for underwear just because it's small. Her whole thing is it's small, and so it shouldn't cost that much. It's like, girl, please. Girl, please. If you use that same amount of fabric and you made a little pouch, you could hold about $300 worth of your fancy makeup that you pitch on your TikTok channel. So, girl, stop. Just stop. It makes me nuts. I can't even watch juicing videos because people piss me off. There was one person where it was just like, they're just juicing because they actually love the mechanics of the juicing. I'm like, you go do it. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel strong. You enjoy it. Yeah, you do it. But the second people are like, I saved $2. It's like, well, did you save $2 in labor? No, you didn't. Okay. And then you wonder why manufacturing is going overseas. You wonder why nobody makes stuff in the US anymore. Let me tell you why. Because nobody values labor. Okay. That was a bonus rant. I didn't mean to go on, but such is life. Okay, let me respond to some comments here. Celine says stripes are great because you can play with chevron patterning and stripe placement. Yeah, like if you just look at just do a quick Google on men's striped shirts, you'll see a lot where with pockets, with plackets, with collars, collar stands, cuffs, house plackets, all these things where the grain doesn't matter that much. You see a lot of menswear brands play around with the plaid and stripe direction of these smaller areas, and you can have some interesting effects. And so go check that out. Rachel says, I'm so glad you decided not to just do highlight reels. I get so much more value from actual videos that show the entire process, even when things don't go exactly right. Girl, yeah, that last video I posted was embarrassing. I was so irritated. And then I didn't have time to fix it because I had to take my husband to the hospital. And I was just like, all right, here you go. Sometimes things don't work out. And the lining you thought was going to be a good idea ended up not to be a good idea. I still stand by the decision that the cotton shirting, not cotton shirting in general, but the one I have is not a good idea. And I still don't want to use it. But I'm going to go dig in my stash after this live stream. Gabrielle, hi Zoe. I can't believe I missed the live I gave a subject for. Forgive me. I will continue to miss the lives. Yeah, that's why I record them so people can watch them later. Yeah, the only thing about you missing the live is if I didn't cover exactly the question that you answered, sorry in advance. I did talk about engineered prints for like half an hour though. Rachel says, way too many people either ignore or are unaware of the labor that goes into making clothes, not to mention the value of labor and other costs. Here's the thing about that. And I agree with you, but here's the thing. It's not even about, do you know the pricing of a garment? It's the assumption that labor doesn't cost anything. Okay? The $20 underwear, it's like, you should know some of it goes to labor. The fact that they kept emphasizing how small the underwear was, it made me crazy. It's like, yeah, you have to sew the side seams, you have to sew the undercarriage with the gusset, you have to bind the leg holes and the waist. And I mean, she didn't show a picture of the underwear, so I don't know what kind of waistband situation they have, but all those materials, and even if it's like a small thing, it actually has more materials because you have to figure out what kind of elastic you're using for the leg holes, what kind of elastic you're using for the waist. Sometimes they're not the same kind, depending on what kind of waistband you like. Like I prefer a wider waistband. It's just more comfortable for me. Okay. All those things, if there's any extra binding, what like the special machinery that you need to use for adding elastics. Okay, like all those things, like the cutting and the sewing and the packaging and everything, like you should account for some labor, even if you don't know what piece of the pie labor costs are. And you know, here's the thing is she works in beauty. And so I'm sure she's seen plenty of videos where you see all these lipsticks made by machines. So maybe she cannot fathom the fact that robots do not sew and that humans are required every step of the way. And do not get me started. I already have a full rant on how robots do not sew on Instagram. And you know what's funny about that is in response to that Instagram reel, people sent me video clips, and it's literally you see a pair of hands manipulating machinery to do multi-step processes, and they think that's robot sewing. No, you are literally showing me a video of human hands working a machine. And yeah, some machines do multi-step processes. Amazing, wonderful, human ingenuity at its finest. But you're still sending me a video of human hands running that machine because it requires human hands to run that machine. And if fast fashion companies could figure out a way to reduce the number of humans used in sewing, they would have done it yesterday, the day before yesterday. So don't get me started on that. So even in cosmetics, where you see all the machines being made on an assembly line machine, there's still humans who have to oversee things and fix things when things go batty. Like, even if you don't know that labor is such a huge part of the costing pie, these juicing people with their, I saved $2 on this juice. You didn't miss me with that shit. Ellen says, remember Jeff Goldberg's line in Jurassic Park when the T-Rex got loose? I really hate it when I'm always right. Okay, listen. I do though. I was actually talking do y'all remember a couple months ago when the Guess models came out and they were AI models and people were freaking out? And I was like, I told y'all. I didn't say it out loud. I only said it to my husband. If you want, my husband is the receptacle to all of my rants that I don't even put on social media. But I was like, I told everyone when I made that, how is AI going to affect fashion? video on the main channel, I said one of the first jobs to go were going to be regular, degular models that were not famous. So you either have to have some sort of celebrity presence, like one of the 90s supers, or someone who has like such huge presence. Like, oh my God, who's that black girl who wore that Swarovski crystal ombre effect at the Met Gala? Anak Yai, was it? Like, and who was that girl in the Margiela runway? Alex Kasani. I don't quote me on those names, but unless you're girls like that, where they have a huge following and they're known for a distinct style, a distinct look, a distinct walk, you're going to get replaced. You're going to get replaced by AI, and bam, Guess is doing it. And they got a lot of flack for it, but there are a lot of people who think any publicity is good publicity. Did you know that Loro Piana sales went up after their whole scandal of the whole underpaying for production, low quality production, cost cutting production measures? Like, that was literally bad publicity looking into Loro Piana's production practices. And their sales went up because all of a sudden their brand got more exposure than ever. So they were being bought up by these rich people who love the feel of it and literally do not give 2 cents about the ethics of a thing. So in the end, Loro Piana won. So yeah. Tyler says, in my experience, the bulk of the price is the labor. A lot of it is, especially if you think about, if you include overhead of the design development that goes into a thing that is ultimately broken down by, it's like the industry's version of cost per wear. It's like every time you sell another one, the development cost per piece goes down, but still like all the upfront development of a thing and then the labor of a thing and then the marketing and the sales and the customer service, it's like you have to pay for all that. And people forget that. And if you want to know more about that, I do have a video on the main channel. It's called Why is My Polyester Dress $300? So Jillian says juicing at home is actually expensive too. Have you seen the cost of some of those things? And, you know, I'm particularly sensitive to it right now because I moved into a smaller kitchen. When I moved to LA, I have less cabinet space than I ever did. And I got rid of a few appliances in my Oakland building. We had a very extensive free cycling program, which I adored. And so I put quite a few appliances in the free cycle before I moved down here. And so, like, if you have a smallish kitchen and unless you're juicing every single day, which I don't recommend, okay, you are drinking all the sugar of fruit without intaking any of the beneficial fiber, which balances out the fructose to give you maximum nutrients. Everyone's always talking about protein, but it's really about fiber for your overall health. Here are 2 things that like wellness hasn't figured out how to make more money off of and therefore will not spend a lot of time talking about until they can figure out a way to spend money on it or make money off of it is fiber and oral care. Okay, they're kind of getting into the expensive floss and electric toothbrush market, but until they can monetize it like skincare, if they can start adding more steps to it like skincare, people are going to care less about oral care, which is actually way more important to your overall health, and start talking more about fiber. They're going to start producing more fiber products as opposed to protein products. And then all of a sudden, fiber is going to be the most important thing about in terms of nutrients, which it already is, but they haven't figured out how to monetize it yet or make enough products, or they're in the process of making those products. So until those products are made, they're not going to talk about the importance of fiber in oral care. And yeah, that was just a lot of ranting. Rachel says, yes, people recognize the value of their own labor, but not the value of the people's labor who made their clothes or anything. Yeah. Have you ever talked to anyone who wanted to commission something and the artist gave their commission price and they're like, I saw this post this photographer made on Threads where this guy was like, why did you share that image? You're so stupid. stupid. Now I can just screenshot it and print it off myself and just hang it for free instead of paying you. And the photographer said, okay, well, you could do that. You could screen grab this low quality, made for the internet little JPEG, and blow it up as big as you want on whatever, and it won't be signed and it won't be high quality. But, you could totally do that. Or you could pay me what I am due and I will print out on beautiful paper a really high res version of this photograph and sign it so that you have the real deal. But sure, you go off, King. And I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. The underground says, ha ha ha, I'm loving this rant. Okay, thank you. Aliazar says, I agree with how learning about how our capitalist system is so rife with abuse makes things less enjoyable and how the devaluing of labor perpetuates it. Yeah. Like I really have to be zoned out and turned off in order to enjoy things sometimes. And sometimes I just like there's all these weird, funny little mini short C dramas on TikTok now, and the acting is so terrible. But the people are pretty, and the melodrama is so amusing to me that I just roll with it until they tell me I have to pay for something. But yeah, it's just like it's so melodramatic, but it's not real. So to me, that's like more enjoyable. Okay, my number one, it's been an hour, so I'm going to close this up soon. So drop your last questions in the comments now. And I share this on Threads. You should follow me on Threads because I am actually active on Threads. But my handle is Zoe Hong and ZoeHong. My favorite thing on the internet right now is this woman whose internet handle is Cinnamon Blaze. And she's on TikTok and she's on Instagram. And she's this half black, half Korean woman. Basically, she was born in Korea to a black US soldier dad and a Korean mom. And he was stationed in Korea where he met her mom and they got married and had a baby. And when she was 2 years old, they decided to move back to the US or move to the US. And the dad said, I'm going to take our little girl and I'm going to set things up and get a place and whatever, and then send for you. He did that, and then he basically stole the mom's passport and just cut off all contact. This was in the 80s, so this is pre-internet, like all this stuff. And so she was not able to get a hold of them, and so they lost touch. Fast forward like almost 40 years, like definitely 30 plus years. The woman is now full grown, has her own children, and one of them I think is in law school, like full grown children. And she decides that she wants to go to Korea and look for her mom. Now, the thing with Korea that I think is a little bit special from other countries, other systems might have this too, but Korea, because of the war, because of the separation of North and South Korea, because of the huge number of South Korean babies being sold to the U.S. As adopted orphans, the government has set up certain systems to help reunification. I am a sucker for a reunification story. Like when I see these siblings, like super old siblings that got separated during the war, and one ended up in North Korea and one ended up in South Korea, and they get to see each other for the first time, I am bawling. I'm just a mess, okay? Like dehydration level crying, okay? Anyway, so basically this woman, she went to Korea and she found out that you could drop your DNA off at one of the big police stations in Seoul, and they have a database where people who are missing relatives, who are looking for lost relatives, will submit their DNA to these systems, and they expire after 10 years. And if the person is still interested in finding these relatives or letting relatives find them, they resubmit their DNA. And so this mom has been doing it repeatedly this whole time. And so this woman went in, found out about the system. She submitted her DNA to the police station, and they found her mom, who had been submitting her DNA into the system. And they found each other, and they have been getting to know one another. And then on another trip, the woman brought her kids over to meet their grandma. And now, like, their TikTok is more like her visiting Korea again and building their relationship, learning each other's languages and customs. And, she's meeting her newfound uncles that she never knew and her mom's friends. And oh, like tearjerker, immediate tearjerker every time I see her TikToks. And that one I actually follow. I follow very few TikTok accounts of people I don't know in real life. It's like, but I actively follow that one because I cannot miss any of their TikToks. I'm always like, I'm so happy for you guys. Like, oh my God, I'm tearing up right now. Anyway, that's my favorite thing on TikTok. So if you want to enjoy something that is just pure and delightful and is not about any sort of capitalist system, like, go watch their reunion stories and how cute they are getting to know one another and how they try to communicate when, their language barrier, they're still overcoming it. And, the early TikToks when the kids were over in Korea, like making grandma do TikTok dances. Hilarious. Hilarious. Like, I love all of it. And she's writing a book. No, she wrote a book and it's coming out. So, anyway. The Underground says, listening to this while I break my hand putting studs on a car. That's also labor costs. If you have to go to the hospital, protect your hand. Jillian says, yeah, they really need to be nice from all the washing. They break down pretty fast. Yeah. Jillian, pick out a face you'd be jealous of. Valison Anukyai. Yeah. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it that correctly, but that is the person I meant. My pronunciation, okay? Yeah, Anukyai wore the Swarovski outfit. Thanks, Violet Femme. And Jillian says, yeah, I love her. She's great. I don't know who you're talking about, but both the models I mentioned are awesome. So I think that's what you're talking about. Jillian also says, you really need the super duper expensive machines to be able to do them all. Yeah. Gabrielle, yes, about fibers. All that I see on these plates are starch and meat. Yeah. I mean, protein's good for you, but you need fiber. How are you going to move all that protein out of your system without fiber? Okay. You need both soluble and insoluble fiber. Not that I'm trying to be a fitness influencer. I'm just really all about balanced eating. Okay. Have your junk food, but also have the days where you're eating mixed grain rice and kimchi, which I had this morning. So, but I also plan on going to eat tacos for dinner. So, whatever. Alan says people choose to be ignorant. Otherwise they would have to have morals regarding the exploitation of labor. See, here's my thing. Is like, just buy less shit. Period. People are always like, oh, it's so hard to find this and find that and buy this and buy that. Just buy less stuff, period. Just stop buying stuff. Jillian said, oh my God, I'd go to the dentist or use dentist grade materials as much as I could if wealthy. Yeah. I grew up in a typical immigrant household where going to the dentist was fancy. It was a luxury. And that's why my gums are bad now. So when, as an adult, I was able to afford to go to the dentist regularly, like, I got my teeth fixed. I had an amazing dentist in Oakland. He's retired now, but he was incredible. My dentist was so amazing. After he had took one of my molars out and he had examined my teeth for other things, no cavities. Apparently I have good teeth and really bad gums. Just my lot in life. My dad was exactly the same. And he was kind of looking at my bite and my jaw and everything. And he's like, do you trust me? And I was like, yeah. He's like, I just want to file down one tooth. And he took a file and he just sanded down one tooth. And all of a sudden my bite just settled and my teeth just kind of settled into each other. And it had just been prevented of that because one tooth was just like a little long. And he just filed. It was just like, not even very long, okay? And then all of a sudden my teeth just, my dentist was amazing. Go find a good dentist. Alan said, I got told £1,000 was a lot of money to spend on a wedding dress. I replied with, no, not really. You should spend that on a mobile phone. Like, yeah, like I love watching Say Yes to the Dress. It is one of the, because it's fashiony and it's a reality show, but at the end of the day, it's really like a lot of it is like, you know, these brides come in, they're feeling happy and hopeful. And usually at the end, they find a dress that makes them feel beautiful and we all clap. And I love that feel good feeling. But yeah, it's like actually the way wedding dresses cost is actually on par with how all the rest of our clothes should cost. Okay. 100 years ago, the annual budget for a family to spend on clothes was much larger than what we spend now, average family budget, but on fewer articles of clothing. Because 100 years ago, they were buying more quality, they were buying fewer things, they lasted longer. And so when people like in the 90s, vintage started becoming a thing, and people kept saying, oh my God, vintage quality is so nice. It's like, yeah, they didn't blink at a $300 coat or their pricing equivalent with, you know, without inflation. Because yeah, that was like, yeah, a $300 coat, that's a deal. That's a deal. With like good sturdy outer fabric, a suitable lining, good construction, quality closures. Like, yeah. Like that's how they could survive all the winters that family wore that coat and then be given away to this or sold to this other store to be sold as vintage. Like, how do you think it survived all that? Because it was expensive and sturdy to begin with. But we don't care about that in the now. People are like, oh, I only buy vintage because of the quality. Yeah, you're part of the problem because you think clothes should be super, super cheap. And if you can't get super, super cheap new, you're going to get super, super cheap used. You don't think like, oh, that's because they paid for quality back then. And literally with the dollars, they paid for quality back then. Oh, I'm so tired of people. Okay. We're going to wrap this up. Yeah, people are so opinionated on how much people spend on their dresses. Okay. What do mature women look for when dating younger guys? I don't know. I've been happily married for 20 years. Okay. Jillian, I read the comments on those Say Yes to the Dress videos, and a lot of them are hate over prices people will pay. Like, I agree with many people care more about the wedding than the marriage, but some people are just hating. Here's what I think about weddings. Okay, this is my end all be all. Like, if you want to spend $100,000 on your wedding, do it. And if you want to spend only $100 on your wedding, do that. I just don't believe in going to debt for your wedding. I say have the wedding you can afford and be happy with and not be in debt and have to borrow money from people and owe people favors and demand discounts and, you know, try to hire photographers and undercut them. Like, get the wedding you can afford and pay people and not go into debt. That's what I think you should do. And if that's $100,000, if that's, you get the wedding you want and you can afford that and you don't go into debt and that's, and you're still paying people, I don't freaking care. I don't freaking care. Okay. You do what is work for your budget. Okay. Okay. I'm going to wrap things up. Oh man, someone put a 6-7 in my comments. This is what happens in live streams. Okay. Jillian says, don't skip out on the honeymoon for the wedding either. Yeah, you know what? You know, the wedding gifts, it's like, yeah, pitch in for my honeymoon or for my house or down payment or, you know, give to charity. I don't know, whatever. But wedding culture is toxic. And I don't even mean about the money being spent on it. I'm talking about, oh, there was a thread. I think it was on Reddit where people were talking about what weddings were like before social media, what bachelorette parties were like before social media became a thing, where we always had to outdo each other on social and make our bachelorette parties just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And, you know, when I was in my 20s and I was doing more of my girlfriends are getting married now, as that sort of thing, like, yeah, we just went out for a night. We wore ridiculous dresses. The bride would wear like a white mini dress and a cheap veil and like a, what are those pageant banner things that said bride or something like that, bride to be. And we went out and got hammered. I was 20. I quit drinking when I was 24, so I was usually the DD. But we got hammered. We danced our butts off. We ate too much greasy food. We took sloppy photos on disposable cameras and called it a night. And because they were just like these fun little parties, that was back when the tradition was to do it the night before the wedding. That kind of fell away by the time a lot of my friends were getting married, but still, it was like we were not like some people were doing weekend vacations and stuff, but that was not like the expected thing. Now the expected thing is what are we doing on bachelorette weekend several months before the wedding, and it's like a whole thing where everyone goes to Vegas and pitches in for a suite and all. Mm, yeah, anyway. Now, I want to end this on a good note, okay? If you want to get in your feels and watch something lovely, go look up Cinnamon Blaze on TikTok or Instagram. It's cinnamon.blaze is her TikTok handle. Cinnamon, like the spice, dot blaze, BLAZE. Okay. And just scroll to the bottom, or no, the whole overall story is in her pin videos. And then just like go look and watch just all the feels. And they're so cute together. And like, oh, the kids. And that's a good time. That'll hit you in the feels. If that doesn't hit you in the feels, you have no heart. I'm sorry. You just don't. Okay, Mr. EJ Greer just gave me $5. Thank you. That was very generous of you. Thank you very much. Just in time for me to close out. So, yeah, if you want a little non capitalist joy in your life, go watch Cinnamon Blaze's TikToks or Instagram reels. And I will see you on Friday for a recorded video where I'm finally finishing that tank. And then maybe I jinx myself. And then next Tuesday for the live stream on Follow the Money.